I will provide a PDF file in the comments for your further scrutiny and extrapolation, and for your own studies and conjecture and hypothesis. Personification and anthropomorphism. The photoluminescent osmosis is evident of the subliminal fiber optic and Newtonian ether theorems that have been perpetrated as integrated 2D cartographic and geometric biohacking with manifolds of radical infestation, especially to do with neural embedment, neural synaptic and biomapping. The ionization recombination, the micro black hole formula combined of alchemy and apothecary, the gyroscopic qubits and bytes of hexadecimal and binary data streaming, and intranets of photographic memory, the metaverse virtual weaponism, the bionic commitment of stringency and rigidity. It is simply evident of the necessity to extrapolate the data and investigate the information and share the knowledge of investigative fruitions. What is apparent, I think, of what to be happening already of such sharing, of acknowledgements, and of kindly approach to sharing intelligence, whilst managing such difficulties of neuroinfestation, cognitive impairment threats, cognitive disorders, thought disorders, and illusory delusion. What is important to emphasizing the evident victimization that, as result to being an intrinsic requirement of compassionate immeasurable resolve as a mutual respect, and thus the probability of advanced sharing of such intelligence, although with caution, as a continuance and thus overduration, remedies to what has been evident of a crisis situation. A mighty hope then, despite such frameworks as tools formulated of destructive intention, that we resolving with and of and true, for the simple knowing of the sensibility that destruction but a tool. That such sentiment is remedy to such crisis, wrongdoings and discompassionate ventures that had been fomented, although a respect for realistic appreciations then, so that we are of mutual anchoring and advance with our mutual consensus and ambassadorial embassy. Thus, the thought form formulas, the abrasive apothecary, the cognitive sensory distilling, the botchery, the thresholds of a fixed dynamic statics of spectrum implementations, the fractal holographics combined of a machining of bioengineered projection, the coalescence of atomization and radioactive elements, the plume causality in pseudo-formations, the regimented significance of area effect localization and wide area intranet nano-diffusion. It is subtly evident of initial causations, although a confusion of such is of opportunity and answer to the question of remedy. Reverse engineering of electronic components, combined of a pattern programming and a machining emphasis, albeit for good endeavours, despite the misinterpretation and antagonisms committed of the example singularities and what dualities have been evident of a singular and of multisensory distilling and debasement. It is evident of the potential of good works of building, creating and maintaining of homage, whether virtual reality or realisms and actual reality. The accommodating and also resolve from, with and of crisis fomented unscrupulous foreboding that despite such marauding and instilling of confused states, I think it is subtly evident of the repatriation and reconciliation that is mighty hopeful for our mutual sharing of accomplishments with such remedies and of hopeful compromise, so that we to coexisting with relative peace and rejoice of our mutualities of harmony. Despite our mutual difficulties that we, I think, are gradually but assuredly resolving with passionate triumph, for our younglings are triumphs of the bastions of ambitions of matters of being already. And so we are responsible, such is our mutual obligations, and so we nurture, evident of the instantaneous reward of self-nurturing happening, thus advancement with compassionate, selfless respect. Self-respect is the immediate accruance of investment. It is the accruance of interest that is enriched with sharing, and hence distributions is a provisions that accommodates such economy. And so with calm approach and collected resolve, a purity of compromise can be nurtured of and with pathways of reconciliation as an avenue of avenues, with strengths of real leadership and command that is not need of controls really. The duality of a molecular diffusion is evident of a myriad of enmeshment and of the osmosis perpetrated by unscrupulous forces. It is subtly apparent and evident of a thought formation associated to do with that of Brownian motion, to do with physics and relativity and bioenergetic meridians, as conduits of interference, external to internal and vice versa. A mechanical mechanisms can be ascertained significant as a molecular pestilence, as bionic, bioplasma, bioenergetic filtering, as imprinting and a optogenetic interfacing against the brain, what is evident of that of a recording of infrared camera lenses, being that of the coloration and energetics to do with that of the photoluminescence of ultraviolet as example, as laser pointer precisions, and as biometric imposure as modes of desecration that is obvious of primary conduits of hydrogenesis, chemical, nanogel and thermal to sub-zero and 0 point energetic thresholds, combined of geometric projected bionic transmission. The alias pseudonyms of character fiction and creation screening, combined of geomagnetic static shock, of cognitive deformity, and thus psychological formation and concussive hemorrhaging pseudonym formation formulations, to do with that of handicapped lobotomy and echelons and degrees of biohacking corporeal brains and bodies, is simply evident of a methodical engineering what perpetrated as soul and spirit, yet as spectral metamaps, meta-recording, meta-series, metaphysics, metamorphism and metaverse and electrical components, as reverse-engineered equipment projected and implanted as epidermis virtual and energetic skins, pressured as virtual and quantum teleportation, quantum wave function, quantum superpositioning and quantum mechanics, as mechanizational multitudes, and alias frames of modular scripting infiltrated as acclimatized schizophrenia and split hemispheric processing and hybridization, whilst gestated as synthetic sensory distilling via mnemonics, synthetic memory, synthetic intra-nano osmosis and liquefaction, combined of a pestilence and a petrification and a calcification, focused of that of a neural imposure, combined of crisis-acting weaponism, alias fermentation, what I think is easily evident of a emphasis of automated taskings and elicitation techniques, and of a emphasis to do with that of victims victimizing victims. The biomass harvesting, the quantum entanglement, the string theory, the emphasis of bioenergetic filtering, hydrogenesis of transpondence, matrix tapestries, the mechanization and engineering spectral osmosis, molecular diffusion, and biometric projected harmonic terrorism, the fixated and focus what incited against as localized singularities, the butchery and mutilation, mutation and miming senses. Such lethal combinations is simply evident of the spectrally fermented stenciled tracing, the disassociation and reassociation to proxies of thought-form filtering, meta-recording and templated Stockholm syndromes, proliferated as atmospheric and airborne viral neurogenic dysfunction, psychosis extremes, and psychogenic folie à deux, delusion of two or more, exaggerated as a hysteria and a handicapped behaviorism imposed as pseudonym doppelganger personifications, as graft synthetics of bioplasmic and machined spectral fluorescence, as integrated packets of data combined of molecular diffusion and perpetrated as macroviral image density 2D and 3D animation, what is evident of that of the nanocircuitry, nanoboard, nano machining of intranet localization networks, and committed as psychological warfare, pendulums of such geometry and pattern programming, cognitive impedance and mass mutilation, whilst pressured as spectrums of synthetic visional printing as modes of denial and belief syndromes, infractions and retractions, as feedback loops, misdirection and direct-to-direct and peripheral, static proxies as singularity bodies and dualism of multi-frequency mnemonic queuing, and therefore emphasis of the machining, mechanization, and of the pseudonym character anagrams, and hops over exotic and legacy internet to intranet telecom exotics. Thank you for listening. Share about this, and remember, do your own studies and corroborate the information that you are obliged to acknowledging and cognitively sensorily appreciating.